Good evening. Good to see people in chat. We're going to look at Babylon the Great tonight, as you might have guessed from the title. And of course, I see an error message on the screen. I'm not sure what the problem is. Are you guys seeing this? Let me know in the chat, because mine is giving me some kind of error message, like it's not streaming. Is this streaming? Okay, but let me try to refresh my page, because I'm getting weird error messages. All right, I think I just needed to refresh. That was just really strange. Can you see the images now? Hopefully. Okay, good. Yeah, I don't know what that was about. Never did that before. But, all right, back to Babylon. Of course, Revelation is what we're going to look at tonight. And this Revelation is where all remaining Bible prophecy comes together. And it makes hundreds of references to the Old Testament. So to study it without that part of context of the Old Testament will often lead to incorrect conclusions, or at least, not completely informed ones. And this is especially true when we're talking about Babylon the Great. Let's see in the chat. I'm seeing no images. Okay, I'm not sure what the problem is. Is anyone else having a problem with the broadcast, with any part of it? It should be working now. We might try refreshing, Elaine, because, redo the page, because that's what I had to do. I don't know what's going on with Google tonight, but if there's no other problems, I'll just keep going. But, okay, good. So we're looking at Revelation, Babylon the Great, and we have to understand that we have to look at the Old Testament. And there's the first text. What we have up there is the first mention of Babylon the Great in Revelation, which is chapter 14. Starting in verse 8, it says, "A second messenger," that's what angelos means in Greek, messenger, "followed, saying, Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, that made all the nations drink of the wine of the fury," or wrath, "of its promiscuity." That's what the word means in Greek. And is Babylon the Great not Mystery Babylon? We'll get into that a little bit more soon. And so that's the first reference in Revelation to it. And I'm not really going to be able to look at the chat like I got all these windows open, so I'll look at it again later. But let me move this over just a bit. Well, no, it's just things don't want to fit. I wanted to try to keep the map on the page as well. The bottom red marker there on the map is the ancient site, the center of Babylon. It straddled the Euphrates River, and the Tigris is over to the right, to the east on that river. It's not very visible on that map, but that's just to give some idea of what we're talking about. So I've got up here now Dr. Constable's notes. I really cringe at him when he discusses women's passage, although he tries to be somewhat conciliatory, but on a lot of other things he's very good. So we're going to look at his commentary here. And on 14:8, starting on page 216 of his notes, and the link for that is in the description, we see the first reference to Babylon in chapter 14, which only states that her demise is a sure thing before it actually happens. That's why it says is fallen, because it's saying it with such assurance that this is not going to be, there's no possibility of changing God's mind. This is a sure deal, and that's why it says is fallen before it actually happens. Though some say that Babylon was a code word for Rome in 1 Peter 5:13, that he says that, that we're writing from Rome, or reading, greetings from Rome. They say that that he's actually using the word Babylon there, and people think it means Rome because there's no evidence that Peter was ever in Babylon. But as Constable points out, He gives a good case for it, meaning both a literal physical city and a representation of all false religion. That's what Babylon represents in Scripture. It's two things, just like a lot of other things are. So just because Revelation contains so much symbolism doesn't mean nothing in it is literal. That's a mistake a lot of people make. And as pointed out on page 217, I forget exactly where, it's hard for me to mark things in there. On page 217, it says that the use of the term great, the great with Babylon, was first used by Nebuchadnezzar in Daniel 4:30. I don't think I have that up here, but let me see if I can find that. Whoops. It'd help if I spelled it right. Yeah, well, I think I just messed up my page count. Well, let's go to back to page 217. I shouldn't have tried to do a search on that. Sorry about that. We'll get back there. There we are. So somewhere on here it says the use of the great with Babylon was used first by Nebuchadnezzar, Daniel 4:30. It referenced the literal city in that context. So if you look at Daniel 4:30, that's what the great, Babylon the Great, was first used to describe as the actual literal city. This was the ancient original Babylon. And the Babylon of Revelation is both a literal city and the epitome of all that opposes God and all that is called religion. That's the point there that he makes on 217. And that's all described there. You can read that later if you want. Now notice that this is all that is said about Babylon in chapter 14 of Revelation. Let's go back to there. Because before that, it says to worship God, and after that, the paragraph is to not worship the beast. So that's what this is sandwiched between. Okay? So we have, before, preceding, and following who to worship, who not to worship. And so there's certainly a connection between the two, between the warnings about not worshiping the image of the beast, but there's not necessarily a correlation, okay? Since we'll see later that the beast turns on Babylon and destroys it. They cannot be the same entity, and we'll see that later. So let's go back to Constable's notes and go to page 243. So I'm just going to scroll because I don't want to mess it up like I did before. We have to go all the way down to 243. Let's look at the little map there. They tried to do a shadow on their text and it just looks horrible, but references in the notes there. But we're going to, he's giving backdrop here. Let me see if he's got any other charts here. But I do want to just get down. Oh, there's a chart on 231. About the seals, trumpets, and bowls. And I'm not going to get into all that because I do want to focus just on Babylon. And I have notes in my commentary that I don't have a reference for. I'm sure Chow could get it or something. But there's differences also in the proportions. 1/4 in the seals, 1/3 in the trumpets, and it's everything in the bowls. So people will say these overlap or they're describing the same thing, but I don't see how that's possible. Anyway, I don't want to focus on that right now. I've done plenty of things on the whole book of Revelation, but I want to get to 243, and we'll get there any minute now. Almost there. All right. What I wanted to look at there is after the seventh bowl, we go toward the bottom here for Revelation 16:19. And it talks about the splitting of that great city. Okay? Constable argues that though Babylon is remembered here, as you look in the text, that God remembered Babylon and paid her back, the city split into three is likely Jerusalem, and God's wrath is poured out on the Gentile nations because of what's happening to his chosen city. Why is that his chosen city? I've got references in the description to 1 Kings 11:32. And 2 Chronicles 12:13, where God explicitly states that Jerusalem is his city and Israel is his land, and other references. So the city being split, that's being judged, nonetheless, God does judge his people and his land because his people have defiled it, and they've been sent into exile before, and they're back in unbelief in stages, as I've mentioned before. So this is why they're there in unbelief. Yes, there are fake Jews there. There are people, there's a secular nation that has nothing to do with God right now. But that's as expected by prophecy. And the whole reason that Revelation is describing all these things and goes back to Daniel 9, 27, I think, is where it starts on the 70th week of Daniel's 70-week prophecy. It is to finish punishments and cleansing for Israel. So they need to be punished and cleansed, and that's why they're there in unbelief. There are some real Jews there. So the thing is that great city is probably Jerusalem, is the main point I wanted to make on that. And now we're going to get to the main chapters about Babylon, which are chapters 17 and 18. So I'm going to go back to the text here, and we're going to go to 17. And it says that one of the 7 angels or messengers who had the bowl, so this is after the bowl judgments have been described and poured out, then the angel is going to go back and do a review of what happened to Babylon the Great during those bowl judgments. So 17 and 18 is where the main bulk of all that is, and starting on page 247 of Constable's notes is where he gets into that. And let me look back at my notes here. It's pointed out actually on 248. The focus of chapter 7 is the religious aspect of Babylon, and chapter 18 will focus on commercial Babylon. Now, I want to show you real quickly a chart I have had on my website that I just, I think I have a reference in the link in the description to a chart I've had, and you see over here on the right, you have to turn your head to the right to look at that, but I've got, as speculation, the Roman Empire is religious Babylon and the 10 kings, and that's during the trumpet judgments. But then, at the midpoint, at the end of the 7th trumpet, the Antichrist breaks the covenant and says he's God, and that's the one world religion. There is no other one world religion before this or after this mentioned in Scripture, except for the millennial kingdom, where it will be the true worship of God. But here, the beast, or Antichrist, breaks the covenant, per Daniel 9, and makes everyone worship him. That is the world religion. And after that, the second half of the tribulation, the bowl judgments, is when we have the beast empire, or the military, industrial, commercial Babylon. So we have these two aspects of Babylon. The first half of the tribulation is the Roman Empire basically resurrected, and the second half is Babylon. Okay, so this dual reference is much like our modern use of the terms like Hollywood or Madison Avenue or Wall Street. They're all literal physical places that symbolize crassness, greed, corruption, depravity, and just about every other vice we could think of. So those places are real places, physical places, but they also have come to symbolize something much more, something spiritual. Okay, so this is what's going on with Babylon the Great as well. So let me go back to the fact that chapter 17 in Revelation follows on the heels of the bowl judgments, meaning it's a look back, as I mentioned, about how they ended, which was with Babylon's demise. Now the angel gives John a description of her specifically, and more importantly, the interpretation of the symbols. To call all of Revelation an allegory or symbol is to say that the angel allegorizes an allegory or spiritualizes a spiritual concept, which is nonsense. So the fact that the angel is going to tell John what the symbols means that we can't just make them up as symbols as well. So we can see here it starts out, one of the 7 messengers or angels that had the bowl judgments said to John, "Here, I'll show you the judgment of the great harlot sitting on many waters." Some say it should mean beside, but the word is epi in Greek. So And that's the primary meaning. So it says, the kings of the earth has been promiscuous with her, and the earth dwellers, or earthlings, we could say, that's what it means, people who are of the earth rather than of heaven, have been made drunk with the wine of her promiscuity. So people have been feeding on, servicing her, she's servicing them, all the nations of the world. And then it says, he carried me away in spirit to the desert, a deserted place. It can be a literal place. It can be a spiritual designation for absolute apostasy or, complete opposition to God. And this is where he sees in his vision, now he's carried away, a woman riding a red wild animal. That's what beast means in the Greek. It means any wild animal, but I tried to be literal here in my translation, but riding a red beast covered with slanderous names and having 7 heads and 10 horns. We can't just make up what those could mean. We have to look at the Old Testament. So the beast carries the woman is the point here, and we see her descriptions. But first I want to focus on the fact that the beast carries the woman and the woman controls the beast. That's religious and industrial, military, industrial, commercial Babylon. So they are in this grudging necessity of a relationship, not a cozy relationship at all. So the beast is briefly described in verse 3 there. It says, covered with slanderous names and having 7 heads and 10 horns, which is a throwback or a reference to the Old Testament, especially Daniel, but there are others. But especially chapter 7 in Daniel, where it matches up these descriptions of the animals, especially in Daniel 7 verses 23 through 27. This is military industrial Babylon, the secular city-state, okay, by that description. Then in verse 4 begins the description of the woman, and I haven't had my headphones on, so if anybody got on the live stream just now, I haven't been able to hear you, but that's okay. You don't have to speak if you don't want to, but I'll put my headphones on just in case you need to stop me for anything. But let's see, where was I? Verse 4 begins the description of the woman, and her attire is that of royalty. Let me try to highlight where verse 4 is. Okay? Purple and red or scarlet, adorned with gold, precious stones, pearls. She has in her hand a golden chalice filled with the disgusting filth of her promiscuity. You can figure out what that means in literal physical terms, but it's a spiritual symbol, as we'll see. On her forehead is written a secret or cryptic name, Babylon the Great, mother of harlots and disgusting things of earth. So, mystery, Babylon the Great, mystery describes Babylon the Great. It does not say her name is Mystery Babylon. Okay? So in the Greek reads, on her forehead was written a cryptic name, which the word is secret, which means something formerly unknown or hidden, but now revealed. Okay? Babylon the Great is her name. What does it mean? That's the mystery part. And it says there that she's called the mother of spiritual harlots and everything disgusting, meaning she's the originator of it all. She is where it started, this religious Babylon. The woman is religious Babylon. Okay? And what is spiritual harlotry? By the Bible's definition, it's anything that tries to compromise, oppose, or replace worship of the one true God. That's why she's unfaithful. That's what spiritual harlotry is. Okay? Now she's also, as we can see down in the next paragraph, drunk with the blood of the righteous, or the holy people, and of those who testify of Jesus. There's an and there. And there will be people testifying of Jesus in the tribulation. The reason John is horrified at the sight of her is not because he had no concept of spiritual unfaithfulness. He certainly did. But because this woman was masquerading as God's representative. So outwardly she has claimed to be Jewish or Christian or both, but inwardly she is all false religion. That's what Babylon is symbolic of. Okay? Now, we'll look down in verse 7. The angel tells John, why are you so shocked? I will explain to you the secret of the woman and the 7-headed, 10-horned wild animal that carries her, or the beast she rode in on. Okay? The angel is going to describe what the symbols mean, so we can't make up our own. So the angel interprets the vision starting with the beast. Okay? First of all, it's an entity with ancient roots. What was? You notice in verse 8 there, was is not now and is about to ascend from the abyss. So, was means ancient or preceding the time of John at the very least. Yet it did not exist in his time, is not now. So we have to rule out Rome at this point, because it's not now. Rome was in power in John's day. This is not now. But future to John's time is when it will ascend from the abyss and then be obliterated. So which entity does Scripture identify as rising from the abyss? Apollyon, or Abaddon, or Destroyer. That's what they all mean, all those words mean. Who was named in Revelation 9:11, interesting number, but that's where Apollyon, which most commentators hold to be Satan himself, is mentioned in Revelation 9:11, and so the beast is this Apollyon or Abaddon, meaning destroyer, and all the world would be in awe of it. Okay? Now, more about that later, but it says this takes wisdom, so it's not going to be spoon-fed to you, this interpretation, but we're told something about it. Okay? And it says in verse 9, we're talking about the woman now, not the beast. We got to keep those separate. So the woman is described in verse 9. The Greek reads that the 7 mountains the woman sits upon are 7 kings, not that there are 7 mountains and 7 kings. And I need to repeat that for emphasis. The 7 mountains the woman sits upon are 7 kings, not that there are mountains and kings. People go on and on about the city on 7 hills. It's not what the Greek says at all. It says these 7 mountains or hills represent 7 kings. And then the angel says, 5 of those kings had fallen by John's day, the 1st century AD. 5 had fallen. 1 was in power in his day, as opposed to not now, and the other was yet to come. And there's no king without a kingdom, so it refers to both, and the woman has had control of all of them. Religious Babylon has had control of a succession of kings, 5 of which had fallen before John's day. 1 was in power, and 1 was yet to come. So since these attributes conflict between is now and is not now, they cannot refer to the same entity, which again distinguishes the woman from the beast and Rome from Babylon. Okay, we're talking about 2 different things here. Now, most commentators hold that the 5 kings preceding John's time were Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persia, and Greece. Rome was in power in his day, and the future one will only last a short time. What they all have in common is the persecution of God's people, whether Jews or Christians. That final one will be, the future one, will be ruled by 10 kings. That kingdom will be ruled by 10 kings, all under the beast. Now, verse 14, we go down and look at that, says that they will all fight against Jesus. And this happens at the end of the bowl judgments. If you look in Revelation 19, 11 through 19, there's those 1s and 9s again. We'll see that the whole world amasses an army to try to fight against Jesus himself coming down from the sky. And I know exactly why. I never knew this before the last few years, but people who are now believing there is a creator and this is a created realm are being taught also to hate him. They believe the Gnostic version of the bumbling demiurge who allegedly created the world and did a terrible job of it, or some will elaborate on that and expound on that and say, this is the bad God of the Old Testament. This is not true. Jesus himself is coming down, and they will hate him because they'll think this is some bad guy. Okay, but that's what they will do, these kings. They will battle the Lamb, but the Lamb will conquer them because he's King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And then the angel goes on, starting in verse 15, down the final paragraph here in chapter 17, that the waters the woman sits on represent nations. So people will go, well, it can't be the ancient literal city of Babylon in Iraq because it isn't surrounded by water. The angel is telling you that the water represents something else. It's not literal water here. It represents many nations, peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages. But verse 16 is where we see what I mentioned before, are going to overthrow her and utterly destroy her. I mean, they don't just, put her to death. They despise her so much that they will strip her naked, consume her flesh, and set her on fire. I mean, this is just, they can't hate her enough. Who can't hate her enough? Military, industrial, commercial Babylon can't hate her enough. They hate the religion. They hate this Babylonian system that has existed from ancient times and has encompassed all false religion. Why would Satan hate all false religion? Because he wants to get rid of this mask that he's had to wear and be worshipped openly. He wants people to know they're worshiping Satan. That's what he hates. He's had to use this. That's why there's this symbiotic yet hateful relationship between this false religious system that Satan has used to get where he wants to go, and when he's finally there, he throws her off and destroys her because he doesn't need her anymore, and he doesn't have to let her control him anymore. Okay? That's the world religion to come. Now, the final verse in chapter 17, verse 18, turns back to the woman who is called that great city ruling over the kings of the earth. Now, this is the explanation, remember. She is the symbol, the city is the reality. So we can't say it's a nation. We can say it's a city-state. But she can't be a country as we know it today. She's a city-state as ancient Babylon was. So we should look for, in the future, a city that's treated as a sovereign national entity, which also has great control over all the nations. There are roots of this now, but it will be obvious and open during the tribulation. Historically, Babylon has moved before, we have to keep in mind. The physical city was an ancient place, but the religion has moved from Babylon to Pergamos. If you look in chapters 2 and 3 of Revelation, the 7 letters to the 7 churches, which I did last time, remember that Pergamos, the letter to the church at Pergamos, or Pergamum, was called the city where Satan has his throne. So Babylon as a religion has moved from Babylon to Pergamos, and then historically it moved from there to Italy. Okay, this is scripture and history. It moved from Babylon to Pergamos to Italy. The religious system. So there's no reason it can't move again. We can't see, there's nothing in scripture that says it will only move 3 times, or 2 times, I should say, from 3 locations. So it could move again in the tribulation, perhaps to its original location, back in what is now Iraq, which is about 53 miles south of Baghdad. And as I mentioned, it straddles the Euphrates River. So you can see on that map where future Babylon might be, back in its ancient location, the religious system. Okay? Now, let's look at chapter 18. I can find my own links here. After these things, that's a key phrase in Revelation, but it details Babylon's complete ruin. And verse 4, down here in the second paragraph, is where it says, "Come out of her, my people." It's like, this likely refers to both the political and religious systems at that point, because she's going to be destroyed. This is before, things jump around a little bit in Revelation, in spite of the fact that we have a clear sequence of 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 bowls. This point is a vision, and visions can look back and forth, just as has happened in chapter 12. In the middle of Revelation, there's a stop to look forward and back. So that's what's going on here as well, but it's in verse 4 about "come out of her, my people" refers to both systems most likely, since the world's merchants on land and sea moan and wail at the sight of her destruction. So this has got to be commercial Babylon. Okay? Notice the lament in verse 13, though. There's a whole long lament, but in verse 13 there's a particular thing that says about human trafficking, the bodies and souls of people. So she's been into all sorts of commerce, including human trafficking, And verse 24, if we look down here, I'm sorry, I didn't scroll up far enough to the sea captains and all these people, and you can read that whole list, that whole lament. But verse 24, let me try and highlight that. That's the end of the chapter. In her was discovered the blood of all the prophets and holy people who have been slaughtered on the earth. Again, this must be an ancient entity to be guilty of that. So the righteous of all ages are found in this entity, this false religious system, and military industrial, because of all the moaning that's just gone on about from the merchants. So it's ancient, not some young upstart like the United States or modern Israel. Okay, they're talking about this ancient city. So again, this is why I think the religious system will move its headquarters during the tribulation to ancient Babylon, so that they are one again. And this is why any decent people are told to leave before she is utterly destroyed. Now, let's look again at Constable's notes, if I can get down to page 268. But, here they give that's kind of a weird drawing there, but religious and commercial aspects cannot be ignored. But we need to get down to 268, and it's a decent commentary. I don't agree with everything, but worth reading. And so let's get down to 268. Sorry about my slow scrolling, but if I do a search, I lose things, and so I don't want that to happen again. This is some kind of Word document or something I'm looking at. He points out here that the claims Babylon makes for herself are similar to those of the Laodicean church we learned about in the previous TruthFinders on the 7 churches. Okay, so I don't know if I have the exact part up here, but I know I saw it there somewhere. So anyway, the Laodicean church has very similar description. She is the tepid church, if you might remember, with an inflated self-image of wealth and importance. The last church of the 7 is kind of important. Some conclude from this that the church must go through the tribulation, at least half of it, but they can only do so by ignoring other scriptures to the contrary. So you have to have the balance of all the scriptures. If you look in chapter 3 at verse 20 in Revelation, that church had evicted Jesus, who stood outside of it and knocked on the door. So this is a fake pretender church. So the similarity doesn't require the true church to be in the tribulation. The one just before that is the Church of Philadelphia, which is told, because you have kept the word of my endurance, I will keep you out of, not through, but out of the time and place. The hour of trial, and the place is the whole inhabited world, to test the inhabitants of the earth. That's what Philadelphia church, the 6th one, I think, is kept out of. The 7th church is a fake. So that doesn't mean we go through the tribulation as a church. Now there's a gazillion other reasons, but keep in mind that God uses one evil entity, the beast and his kingdom, to destroy another evil entity, religious Babylon. This is God's habit throughout the scriptures, and we know this happens at the midpoint of the tribulation, since that's when the beast demands the world's worship, according to Revelation 13:8 and several other passages, such as Daniel 9, where it says that that the beast demands everybody, breaks the 7-year treaty halfway through, and we know that that's where Revelation matches up, is the same point where the beast demands worship. So it's after the trumpet judgments. But the point is that throughout the Old Testament, God will use, say, Babylon, the original Babylon, you remember the Babylonian captivity, to punish bad Israel. So again, we expect bad Israel in the land, which they are, which is why so many prophecy interpretations such as historicism or amillennialism were invented, because they believed after the 1st century that Israel would never return as a real physical nation in that spot on the earth. But there it is, as of 1948. God's doing, yes, I know the Rothschilds and the Balfour Declaration and all that, but God predicts things. He doesn't necessarily orchestrate in an overt way that this, hey, I'm God and I'm doing this. He'll work behind the scenes like he did, and I believe this is absolutely a fulfillment of prophecy, more specifically the dry bones prophecy of Isaiah or Ezekiel. Sometimes I get the two mixed up, but I've got prophecy charts on that and everything. But the point is that this dry bones prophecy is a return in stages. Right now, they're dead. The bones have not been given life. And I wouldn't expect that until either during or after the tribulation. So we already see the world's elite beginning to be exposed now for their extreme evil and depravity and corruption. We see this, the cracks showing in their facade. But don't make the mistake of thinking that the ones exposing it are necessarily more righteous. What did I just say about God using one evil entity to punish another? The powers that be will go down, but they will be replaced by the beast kingdom. So, and I warned about this years ago on the message boards. I said that even the most awake conspiracy theorists will be fooled into giving their allegiance to whoever topples the powers that be. That's what everybody wants right now. I called it 8 years ago. But these things take time and people forget. So the thing is that, just to summarize all this, Babylon is an ancient entity, both a people and a belief system, which will rise again during the tribulation, and this is what will topple the powers that be, but they will be worse. Only true followers of Jesus are an obstacle to both Babylon and the beast she rode in on. That's the point. This is why the powers that be hate the Bible and anybody who clings to it, us Bible thumpers or whatever people want to call us. This is the thing that the powers that be hate, but it's also the thing that the replacement will hate. So much that we will be overtly hunted and killed. Anybody, I don't believe the church will be here, but anyone who, after we leave, realizes that Jesus was the Messiah and is the one true God, that those people will be hunted and killed and martyred. And that's what we expect to happen. So I'm going to look at the chat now. I don't know what all I've missed, but if anyone is on the live stream, if you want to speak, that's fine. If you don't want to, that's fine. But I'm going to go look at the chat now. Let's see, lots of people here. Good to see all of you. Oh yeah, there's the error message stuff, so we haven't had a lot of comments, but just about a 37-minute presentation. Let's see, everything's working. Oh, okay, not seeing any problems, okay. All right, glad that was working the whole time. There's good old Chow's links with the 1-2 Constable's notes, and like I said, this is also, a lot of this stuff is linked in the description. Let's see what else we got. Not sure why YouTube unsubbed me from, that term's YouTube. I mean, yes, there are a lot of bad Jews, as I just explained why, but I still would exercise caution in, because God still has his chosen people. There are real Jews in there, so we have to be careful about the sweeping generalizations and the terms we use. But because this isn't about bad Jews, it's about bad people. It's about the kingdom of the beast and the fact that, yes, there are fake Jews. God will take care of them. So that's not our job as Christians, of course, to exact God's judgment. It's our job to spread the gospel so that people don't have to suffer God's judgment. That's what we're here for. But yeah, they unsub people. They, tell you there's an error when there isn't. You have to refresh screens. It's just crazy messed up. If YouTube ever goes away or shuts me down or anything, I'm on BitChute, but I can't live stream there. I'm also on Steemit. They have connected with DTube, and it crashed during my attempt to claim my DTube channel, so I can't stream there. And I don't know if they have streaming anyway. But if wherever there's a place to stream, I'll find it, and I can still use OBS and stream from whatever Discord or whatever I want to do. So that's why I've been using OBS and Discord, because whatever I can feed to OBS, I can then feed to someplace else that allows live streaming. So, let's see, the line document, I don't know what you mean, Darlene, there. You were scrolling through. Let's see. I don't know. I think what I'm seeing on myself on there, I don't know what you mean exactly. I've had my chart here and the constable's notes and my translation, the Gift New Testament, that what I've been looking at in Revelation. So, linked document. Yeah, these are the linked documents. Let's see. No, everybody's welcome to stumble in. Let's see. Greetings and salutations to everyone. Who said the word? Oh, just visiting this planet. Yeah. Well, that's okay. We're not gonna do Earth shape here right now, but I have a cosmology playlist. Questioning standard cosmology is a lot of titles, a lot of stuff in there, because that's all I do. But if anybody asks me, what does the Bible present? Even evolutionists will say the Bible presents a young Earth, and ball earthers, the standard cosmology, will say that yes, the Bible presents a flat stationary realm, the snow globe, if you will, something like that, where the Earth is never described in terms of moving or spinning. So, but I don't want to get into that because I don't want to divide on the basis of Earth shape or Earth age right now, even though I have strong convictions on both. So, but I will say that I believe a consistent hermeneutic is to take the Bible literally, historically, grammatically. That's what I do. That's why I'm Bible literalist. But anyway, do you have any videos about hell and eternal torment? Yes, I do, Code Man. There's one a few weeks ago. I'm sure Chow has the link already for eternal conscious torment. So look for that if he doesn't have the link already. I haven't got very far in the chat yet. So yes, I do have one on that. Scientism could be, it is a world religion, so to speak, but again, biblically speaking, during the tribulation, after three and a half years of this 7-year treaty or covenant, then the world religion that the Bible talks about will be worship of the beast, worship of Satan directly. That's what it will mean biblically. There are other world religions. There are attempts at what is called ecumenism, where all religions are they're trying to blend them all together. That's the Hegelian dialectic, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, or problem, reaction, solution. All those words mean the same thing, that they want to blend everything so everybody loses their distinctiveness, like the Borg. That's basically what the world wants, but their plans aren't all going to be carried out as they intend either. So yeah, I went over the term mystery. It's a cryptic name, Babylon the Great. It isn't really Mystery Babylon. Okay, good. I already missed Concerned Citizen, but good to see you. Why do you think that scientism, Roman Catholic Church have been making a lot of one world religion moves lately? They have their plans, but their plans will not necessarily be realized. But again, Satan hates world religion. He hates having to wear that mask, and he will get rid of it eventually. But for now, it's serving a purpose. And so he doesn't really care. All he wants is for truth to be buried in compromise, and that's why compromise is deadly. So that's my best guess as to why they're doing that. I do not believe that Mystery Babylon is America. First of all, it's not Mystery Babylon, it's Babylon the Great. And America is most likely, in my opinion, to be the beast kingdom. Because in prophecy, we have the kings of the north, south, and east, but we don't see the kings of the west. And in my opinion, that's because the one missing is the one to come, which is the beast kingdom. So Mystery Babylon, or Babylon the Great, is called, has a cryptic name. It is world religion, Babylonian religion, but the military-industrial Babylon is the kingdom of the beast, and that's the kingdom of the west, in my opinion. I've seen a good video on it being Mecca, but again, it has to fit every single detail of Bible prophecy, and I don't see it fitting every single detail, but it does make a convincing case. Yes, it was a vision. John was carried away in spirit, so it is a vision, but the angel explained it. That's the important point that I wanted to get across, that the angel said, there's this woman on the beast. Let me tell you what the beast means. Let me tell you what the woman means. The woman is world religion. The beast is the military-industrial entity, and halfway through the tribulation, the religious entity will be destroyed by the secular entity, and then you will have the kingdom of the beast, and I say secular, but the world will be required to worship the beast. That will be the one world religion. Yes, the 7 mountains are 7 kings, as I mentioned. You might have missed that part. Let's see. Yes, Babylon religiously has endured, and certainly all the roots of world domination have been tried before. The world was judged before. There were many empires. So Satan keeps trying, but it will happen only when God says. Yeah, I'm really not concerned with Enoch and studying Revelation, but mostly looking from Revelation to the Old Testament, because that's what it brings all together, all the Old Testament prophecies. I wouldn't say necessarily that being born from above is coming out of her, because it's in a very specific context. We saw in Revelation here in the text that it is Babylon that people have to come out of. And yes, you get out of the world system by being born again, but that really isn't the primary meaning. That in Revelation it says, come out of Babylon, this system, and it's coming out during the tribulation. So there are people who come to faith during the tribulation who have to come out of this city-state and system before it's destroyed. Let's see. I never knew the space station to be scarlet colored. It's mostly white from what I could see. But I don't know. Anyway, the scarlet, the beast being scarlet has one symbol, and the woman being, clothed in royalty, in scarlet and purple. That symbolizes the royalty. She thinks she's the queen of the world. The queen of heaven is a name in the Old Testament of a false goddess as well. And you can trace, I've done that in my Babylon video from a few years ago. I did more of the history of Babylon, so you might want to look at that sometime. Let's see. I don't believe the ISS really fulfills Bible prophecy, personally. That's just my opinion, but okay, let me see. Looking at the chat. I don't know what Armenian. I mean, I know there's, if you mean Armenian, but I'm not sure what you mean there. Yeah, the horns are represent the 10 kings. Okay, I disagree about Babylon being Saudi Arabia and Mecca. It's Sheba and Dedan are mentioned in Isaiah, or Ezekiel. Ezekiel 38:39, where they make up a mild protest about Gog and Magog, saying who are going to invade the land being Israel. And Sheba and Dedan, which is Saudi Arabia, just put up a mild protest. Are you really going to go there and take a plunder? So I don't believe that they are Mystery Babylon. And there is, again, it's not Mystery Babylon. It's a cryptic name, Babylon the Great. Just my opinion, but I think I backed it up with scripture. So, I mean, there are good arguments for other things. This is just my opinion. Because who else's opinion would you get coming here? Let's see. Yes, things are happening. Oh, thank you. Very kind comments. Flat Earth forums. Okay. Yeah, a huge fan. Awesome. Let's see. Good to see all you guys. A great red dragon. Here again, the dragon, we didn't go over that part of Revelation today. I've gone over it in other videos. The dragon is Satan. And there's even one verse in Revelation that says that ancient serpent, the dragon, or Satan, is all called the same. It's all describing the same entity as Satan. But I don't think, they will name their little rocket toys and so-called spaceships after Satan to pay homage to him, but I don't think they are fulfillments of Bible prophecy. I think the symbolism's backwards there. Yeah, I've been banned from channels too, usually the Hebrew Roots channels, the anti-pre-trib channels, the King James only channels. Not all of them, but those are channels I typically get banned from. Let's see. Yeah, Behold a Pale Horse. I never read his book, William Cooper's book, but the Pale Horse is simply the death that follows the other 3 horses, which are political conquest, hot war, economic disaster, and death and pestilence and all those things. So that's the four horsemen. But let's see. Also a networking channel. Okay. Maybe when the video renders tonight, Flat Earth Forums, you can post some links in the comments. That would be handy. Let's see. Bible refers to dragons. They must be real. Well, yeah. There were dragons. You can look in Job, I think chapter 38 and forward, that where it talks about Leviathan and Behemoth. I think Leviathan is more the dragon, a swamp-dwelling creature that breathes fire and has tight scales like armor. Clearly describing a dragon, and this is where we get, where cultures get the idea of fire-breathing dragons. They existed. They were real things. But Lucifer or Satan or, the serpent is also called the dragon. Yeah, let me go find that since we're asking. Let me find my search, because I know it's in the later chapters of Revelation, but I should be able to find it. We have in chapter 12, the dragon that goes after the woman and her child. But then Revelation 22, he sees the dragon, the ancient serpent, the false accuser, the adversary, and confined him for 1,000 years. That's Satan. False accuser is devil. Adversary is Satan. That's what those words mean. Serpent, dragon, Satan, devil is all the same entity. So there you go. Yep, Isaiah 46:10. That is, prophecy is the fingerprint of God on the Bible. It's what sets it apart. It comprises nearly a third of the Bible is prophecy. You won't find that in any other religious text. Nostradamus doesn't count because his quatrains are very cryptic and people make them mean whatever they want. People will say that about the Bible, but we do have history to look at, and we have both testaments. We have multiple fulfillments of prophecies, and so, but the point is that these are verifiable. This is why there's a book called Daniel in the Critic's Den, because they tried to insist that his accuracy was so good on the succession of four world empires in order, those being Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome, and details about the political intrigue that went on, that they decided Daniel must have been written after the fact, but it's pretty solid that it was written before, and that's why Bible prophecy stands apart. Let's see. Let me look back. This thing scrolls on me and skips, so I have to look back. Let's see. I think I missed a bunch of things. Let's see. Dragon. See, many are the plans. Yeah, God's purpose will prevail. Yep. No, it doesn't. It doesn't say a great red dragon appears in heaven. It says that John is seeing a vision, and he sees a great red dragon. It's on earth, pursuing the woman and her child, pursuing Israel and the Messiah. That's what that's about. So, be careful with that. Don't do what we call newspaper eschatology, where we read the current headlines and say, this is the fulfillment. That's not how Bible prophecy works. So I have to disagree with that one. There is a specific biblical meaning to all these things. Okay, thanks, Chow, for that link to what Codeman was asking for. Let's see, good, he's on the links. That's really awesome. I don't know why you can't see those guys. They're certainly not blocked here. Switch. Maybe they think you have them blocked. I mean, they being YouTube think you have them blocked. It's crazy. All I can advise is people not to jump to conclusions because, YouTube is messing with people. So, let's see. Prison for the Fallen Angels. Yes, that's what Tartarus is. The Abyss may be Tartarus. Nobody can say for sure, but they're probably names for the same thing. Let's see. Excuses for wars. Yeah, that says human sacrifice as far as they're concerned. And they want to get rid of decent people who, there are a lot of conservatives and Christians especially tend to be patriotic, and so they're getting rid of them. I mean, and making them do it voluntarily. But oh, you got banned on Luke's channel? Well, I don't know. Maybe you can enlighten us later. Let's see. Looking more at the chat. Yeah, the Chinese do have the dragon as their symbol. But again, that just speaks more to the reality of dragons. And I should note that when Paul and the other apostles were on their missionary journeys, that they were warned in a dream not to go to China. So, I don't know. But they do have a role to play in the tribulation. They are the kings of the East, and they will come across a dried-up Euphrates River to attack. So, there's a lot of things going on. Let's see. Yes, the Four Horsemen. Why withhold yourself to win favor? Well, sometimes it's a matter of tact, and you're trying to reach people, and that's why sometimes you hold your tongue, but sometimes you can't hold it anymore. So I wouldn't look down on people who don't speak up all the time. There's usually reasons that they have. So just be gracious and err on the side of caution is all I would say. But there comes a time when we all have to shake the dust. I mean, I understand that too. Yeah, Revelation 12, I mentioned before. The woman there is clearly Israel, because if you look back into Joseph in Egypt, when he was imprisoned in Egypt, that his dream before that was of the sun, moon, and stars bowing to him. So she's clothed with the sun, moon, and stars. This is Israel. And that the dragon is Satan, wanting to destroy her, and then the child he wanted to destroy the child first of all, couldn't do that. The man-child, the rule with a rod of iron is clearly representing Jesus, but they couldn't get him, so now it switches, it's switching back and forth in time, and it goes then to Israel during the second half of the tribulation is told to run when they see the abomination, and that's when the dragon pursues her and fails at that too. So anyway. Okay, yeah, no ill will. And there appeared another, yeah, okay, I went over that one. Right, there's a time, you just pick your battles, that's what you do. Alright, so, let's see. Good to see everybody here. I think I'm caught up with the chat. So if I'm not, let me know. And if there's anything I missed, it's hard to do. It's hard to catch up, especially when it keeps moving. But I'm glad everybody came. Let's see, we had as many as 23 at one point. That's not bad. Hey Nathan, good to see you too. I didn't shout out everybody. I'm sorry. I was reading my notes and trying to keep a train of thought, and that's hard enough to do that without trying to look at the chat. But, yeah, we all choose when to bite our tongue and when to speak and how to speak. I think we should always speak with grace and restraint, but there's a time to hold your tongue and a time to speak out. And I think, we all have to choose when that is sometimes. Any other questions about Babylon the Great? I don't know if I did it justice. Like I said, I've done other videos on the whole history of what Babylon was and is and will be. But the point here today was that Babylon is a very important entity which has two aspects, and the religious and political. And we're seeing both right now, but eventually only the political would be left. So you had asked about the meaning of the number of the beast name or the man of perdition. Yeah, it says it takes, a mind of wisdom. It is the number of a man. And some will insist that it is 616 by some documents, but I'm not convinced by the arguments. I think it is 666. And people speculate because that one isn't explained for us. Okay, it may be one of those things that are only really understood at the time, but it's the meaning of a name, the number of a name. So it is the beast name and number. So the mark of the beast, as far as that goes, is a pledge of loyalty to the beast. It must be taken knowingly, because that's what the beast demands, is knowing worship of Satan himself. So I think that it refers to whatever 666 means, the people will know it at the time. They're taking a pledge of loyalty to Satan. And the mark, in my opinion, it's the beast name or the beast number. It isn't necessarily always the number. It's the name or the number that represents it, one of those. And that this is a pledge of loyalty. Like I said, they're knowingly worshiping Satan. And that this is not our personal ID, because it's the beast number, the beast name, not ours. But I speculate that it is a offer of a DNA upgrade, and that this makes people not quite human. And this is why God says that anyone who takes the mark is doomed. There is no hope for them, because they have become something inhuman and unsavable. And this is also why I believe one of the bowl judgments is that terrible sores break out on the skin of people who took the mark. In my opinion, that is telling me that there's something that happened to them that the body is rejecting. So they're given a DNA upgrade and the body rejects it. That's my opinion and speculation, but there's something to go on in the scriptures with that. So as far as what 666 means, it's the meaning of a name. So the name of the beast will be known. It will be known that this is satanic, and this mark of the beast is that. It's not just anything that people have tattooed on their skin. And again, the Greek word is etched, like a tattoo. That's what the mark of the beast is. It's an etching. It's not necessarily an injection, like a chip, but it probably serves the same function. You can put circuits into your skin with a tattoo. You can do that now. So I have no doubt that the mark of the beast will involve some sort of DNA tattoo that is used to do something to your DNA. And whatever this is, the body rejects, and it makes you something not quite human, which is doomed, spiritually doomed at that point. So let me look back in the chat again. They, not it. Reverse to the seal. Okay, I'm not sure what you mean there. I missed something there, Rapture Ready. Let's see. Google Job 38:14. Look at images. Okay. Oh, for Leviathan or something, probably. Yeah, a king and a kingdom, an emperor and an empire. Where there's one, there's the other. So in Daniel 9, well, it depends on which chapter you're thinking of. There's other chapters where there's beasts, but there's a bunch of different beasts in Revelation. They represent a succession of empires and emperors. So, yeah. Let's see. Have you seen the tree that is robotic that goes on top right hand or on YouTube? No, I don't know what you mean. Oh, a tattoo of sorts, okay. I wouldn't doubt it. People are conditioned to all sorts of symbolic things, and tattoos are something that isn't new at all, but this one will be a DNA tattoo. I do not believe that Elon Musk is the son of perdition. He doesn't fit the biblical description. No, he doesn't make fire. That's a rocket coming down is not fire from heaven, because rockets coming down don't amaze people. People are amazed and astounded when the beast brings down fire from heaven. They're in awe of it, which they're not in awe of Elon Musk. He's a disgrace now. He's being outed as a sham, as a scam artist. So he's not enthralling the world. He's just not. Let's see. Yeah, the in, that's why I say it's an etching in Greek. Etched into the skin. Like one might etch when writing on stone or a tablet of clay or something. That's what it means in Greek. So a tattoo fits the bill. Yes, they do have the technology. There's already nanotech in the chemtrails. Yes, there is. Yeah, rockets aren't amazing at all to anyone. They might have been, in John's day, the Apostle John in the first century, but he's, the Apostle John is describing what he sees. Okay, but here again, it's got to make the people of the day, of the future, the tribulation to be in awe, and that is rockets just start doing that. UFOs, yeah, I believe that. And I'm going to take these headphones off for a bit because nobody's in there and they do hurt my ears after a while. But I believe that so-called space aliens are demons. And, demons are the hybrid offspring of the angels, the fallen angels and humans, in my opinion. So that's what they are. And, they will do signs and wonders. Rockets are a phallic symbol, many believes, just as any obelisk is. But they entertain people. They keep people believing in space travel and that, that there are aliens out there who are kindly visitors, or that seeded this planet with life and so forth. So, yeah, I'm the closer we get to this, the more I am convinced that the powers that be are being toppled as we watch right now, but the entity toppling will turn out to be, whether it is right now or not, will turn out to be the kingdom of the beast. It will fill the vacuum. Because people will be looking for someone to start over and lead them. People always look for a leader. So, kindly aliens, yeah. Didn't people learn anything from the series V back in the day? How many decades ago was that? The Visitors. Let's see. I'm sure AI will be involved. The talking statue may or may not be AI, but it could be spiritually done. Because there are demon-possessed physical objects that do things, and people hear voices come out of things. And so, anyway, Billy Sunday, I haven't seen you in ages. Good to see you. Not that anybody else isn't important, but that's a name I haven't seen in a long time. Sorry you just came after I finished my presentation on Babylon the Great, but we're just chit-chatting now. Yeah, that was I watched that. That was pretty cool back in the day. With their latex makeup and all. It was still pretty cool. Yeah, the thing, it isn't just Musk. It's like Bill Gates and all these people who are committing genocide one way or another. Usually they do it in places like Africa where people don't pay as much attention. The Western world doesn't pay attention anyway. That's their experimental grounds, in my opinion. Really some really evil people. But yeah, maybe they'll all be toppled, but they will be replaced by even more evil people. Let's see. Yeah, I was a programmer, so, they were just starting to talk about artificial intelligence back when I was in college, and at first, I didn't even get the point of it then. It was, okay, we're just making programs, but we're still writing programs with uncertain outcomes of the decision-making process. How is that artificial intelligence? That would have to be originating thoughts. Now, there are some AIs that have done things that were unexpected, but I think that's more a limitation of our own understanding of our own code than because we're limited in our guessing of what all the consequences can be of code. That's why programmers tear their hair out every day trying to figure out what went wrong with their code. I think it's more a matter of that than actual intelligence, but, who knows? That's what we know about. Let's see what else we got here in the chat. Yeah, I think so too. I think it's being passed off as something is not now, but we can only go by what we see. So, and I am getting kind of lightheaded, and I think it's partly the heat. I can't turn on my air when I'm in here because it's doing a live stream because it's too noisy. But anyway, I'm going to probably shut this down and take a break, get a drink and stuff, and walk around if I need to do that. Thanks, everyone, for coming. I don't know what we'll do next week. I hopefully will not be too busy to do something, but I'm installing, speaking of code, a bunch of new software this weekend, so I will have to put a priority on that. But I will try to come up with something for next week. And again, if you have anything to link to or ask a question or suggest a topic for next time, put it in the comments under the video, and I will see it later. So thanks everybody for coming, and we'll see you